like a 15-minute pre-show, and then when we talk about all the interesting stuff, it'll be all right.
Oh, he couldn't wait.
I'm just going live. I'm just going live because the trouble is we do tend to talk the best stuff before we go live, even though no one's going to turn up for another 4 minutes or whatever it is now.
Right.
Well, that's no good. I've just noticed that it doesn't give me the other countdown.
One of the best stuff is me leaving before the live starts, so you've killed that.
Yeah, I've captured that bit now. Yeah, I've captured that bit. Because the only reason you do that, it's proof that he has been there. The only reason we do that is to let you not, so we can't have a dig at you about losing stuff on top of the mountains. So then before that evening, then Matt, what are you going to lose on top of the mountains this week? What was it you were telling us you've just got?
Remains to be seen. By the way, today I drove past a place I've been wanting to go and fly at for quite a while. It's an old military airstrip that is now being used for drifting mostly.
Oh, there you go.
Tire, or the other name of that, tire destruction. But the place is situated in a very beautiful area, and it's got like mountains probably 270 degrees around.
Some more mountains to lose stuff on then.
Well, true, but they are lower and closer, and I can do like a quite long video just flying low proximity over that, all the way around. Would be nice. Be nice, yeah. And actually, still the new leaves on the trees are that fresh new green before the summer heat darkens them. So the place is beautiful.
And I assume it's a little bit more out of town, so you won't have quite so many radio issues and things like that.
Yeah, about 80 kilometers.
Oh,
actually, a friend of mine recently told me that he's got a friend who's working on the new 5G network, and that guy told him that we need to look to move to 1.3 gigahertz because we may have issues with that thing on 5.8 in the future, which is a bit disconcerting.
Yes.
So we'll see.
But 5G. It's like
I haven't a clue.
To be honest, I mean 5G. I don't know about you, Nikolai, but here 5G, if it ever reaches the rural areas here, I will be astounded. I mean, our countryside here, we don't even have 4G here. That alone is 3G places.
Right. Well, he may have been talking about the cities mostly, but I would assume at some point that thing's gonna be everywhere. But for now, the more rural areas seem to not be affected. But in the city, I'm starting to feel that there is something messing up the video feed pretty close by, and that wasn't there like a year ago. Definitely.
Yeah,
there is something in the air.
Something in the air. Songs. We should have a song titles night.
Collins sang a song.
Yeah, exactly. Song titles night, isn't it? Got to get them in there. Then the Revolution, the something in the air, could also get that in there. The I don't think it's ever gonna be a thing here. Although, I guess in some ways I like it. I am at the moment looking for a long range Mavlink sort of system to make comms around and about. And Ian just did a HearLink update video, and I'm disappointed that there are no repeaters in that yet. Oh, here's the other Ian. Here we go. Hello, Ian. We started talking early because we were talking nonsense. How are you, mate?
All right.
Oh, good. I forgot you're another chair shill. I've forgotten that altogether.
He's the original chair shill.
The original chair. Look, I'll keep you two down there. Or should I hang on? No, you've got to shield the chair, so you better go. One of you better go up there, and one of you better go up there. There you go. That's
should
better.
We just relax, Ian? Should we just go, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The chair goes up there.
Battle of the chairs.
Ian's nose. Well, Ian and Wales's nose cam there. Well, what a wonder to behold. All right. Well, sure. Well, I tell you what. Let's because I started early because we were talking about the Sony AirPeak video that's just come out, and I don't know if folks have seen it, but it's full of little Easter eggs for real drone users. I think. No Bruce this week. Bruce he might be here, but he's going to explain to the doctors how to make their MRI machines work better. He's going for an MRI this morning. Oh, here's Dr. Clark. All right, let's start. Probably good evening, Dr. Clark.
Good evening. Yeah.
We started a couple of minutes early because we're going to talk about something else, but I know you're limited on time, so let's just jump into the headline sort of a thing. Dr. Clark,
right, guys, just before you move on, I'm gonna have to say goodnight. Yeah.
You are.
And
all right, mate.
I will see you next week.
All right. See you next
Have a nice chat, guys.
Take care, mate. Cheers. Bye-bye. And good evening there, Darren. Right. Let's put the grown-ups at the top there. There we go. So joining us this evening is Dr. David Clark. He's an associate professor in the Department of Media Arts and Communication at Sheffield Hallam. And he's written a very interesting piece that pertains to Gatwick. And of course, Ian, the hero of the hashtag Battle of Gatwick, is with us as ever. And well, where to start on this one? Dr. Clark, perhaps you're the grown-up at this. Perhaps you can unpack what your thoughts on the whole thing was, or were, or are.
Well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I did remember when the event actually happened, straight away thinking there's something not quite right about this. You know, within 24 hours, 48 hours, when the whole thing was kicking off, if there was a real drone involved, I'm pretty sure it would have been identified, and I think the radar system would have found it that they brought in sort of halfway through, and they would have cracked it and had someone arrested. And I just think there's something odd about it right from the very beginning. So I started just collecting material, cuttings, following it, and various other things came along and distracted me. And then it was really reading some of Ian's posts online that sort of dragged me back into it, got me interested again.
And folklore, as it says in your bio there, is the sort of thing that you're into. And the link for this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching at home, it's in the show notes. How did you see it connecting with an incident in folklore? If for those that haven't read your article,
well, there's many different types of folklore. I mean, the aspect of folklore that I'm interested in is modern legend, which are stories that people tell in the modern day. I mean, as it says there, if you scroll down on my website, you will see a definition of folklore. There you go. Now, when people think of the word folklore, they think, oh, he's talking about fairy tales and giants and imps and that sort of thing. Well, yeah, people did used to tell stories about those things thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. But now we tell stories about things that fly around in the sky. Drones, mysterious drones, UFOs, flying saucers, all those kinds of things. They are examples of modern folklore. And you'll have heard of urban legends. These are stories that people tell, that they pass on, that they've heard from a friend of a friend, and they tend to just disappear, and no one can track the original source of the story down. And this is why I find this particular Gatwick case really interesting, because who saw the drone? I mean, all we know is that it was a security guard. Who was this security guard? And yet, a simple phone call that he or she, we don't even know whether it was a he or she, made to the control tower that set this whole thing running. That, to me, when I compare it to lots of other stories that I've looked into in the past, it sounds very, very similar. I mean, one that Ian will be aware of, there was a whole series of incidents in the 1970s in the north of England that I did a lot of archive research on. And this was during the period when the IRA were involved in a bombing campaign in northern England. And everyone, the police, MI5, etc., were all on the alert for evidence that the IRA were planning something. And then there was a report from a security guard who was he was on patrol at a quarry high in the Derbyshire Peaks, who saw what he thought was a helicopter landing in this quarry in the middle of the night. This is September 1973. Flying a helicopter in darkness in the Peak District and manoeuvring in between power lines and landing in a quarry is a pretty tricky thing to do, even today with all the moving map displays and everything. This was in 1973. Anyway, that report got to MI5 and to the police. And as a result of that, there was a massive panic that got into the media, people seeing helicopters everywhere, thinking the IRA were using them as part of a bomb. They were planning to break someone out of a jail, and a jail terrorist, that they thought that the IRA were going to use this stolen helicopter. They didn't even know it was a helicopter, but they assumed it was a real one. And it got to the stage where MI5 was compiling a list of everyone who operated helicopters in the entire of the UK at that time. And in the end, the police just had to say, this is ridiculous. It's costing lots and lots of time and money that we can't afford. How do we even know there was a helicopter? It's all based upon this security guard who saw some lights coming down in a quarry late one night. So there's an entire, must be about a foot deep file on this that I managed to get hold of using freedom of information. At the end of the day, they had this huge conference in London. MI5, Derbyshire Police, Cheshire Police, West Yorkshire Police all attended. And after like 18 months of investigations, interviewing various police who said that they'd seen this thing, they had to conclude that there was no helicopter.
It's almost the exact playbook, though, isn't it? It's almost exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, that's gone down as an urban legend, a part of modern folklore, and I just see the Gatwick story as almost like a rerun of the whole exercise.
How long did it take them to say, we'll stop then? If you just told me and I didn't hear it, I'm sorry, but how long from start till the police said, hey, that's enough?
About 18 months.
Where are we now? Hang on a minute. It's quarter to 18 months.
During this period, the media got hold of it, and it was a similar splurge to what you got with Gatwick, in that it was, the IRA have acquired a helicopter. How have they managed to get this helicopter? Is the London in danger of being attacked by a helicopter? So you can see almost like the helicopter then was playing the same role that the drones are today. It's when people are anxious about something, and someone says that they've seen something. And there's lots of other aspects of folklore where this happens, modern folklore. You'll be aware of all the sightings of things that are supposed to be large black panthers and escaped tigers and things that lead to police helicopters being sent up and thousands of people going out with guns trying to hunt this thing down. And there is no tiger, there is no escaped panther. It's someone who's seen something odd in unusual circumstances. And I don't want to get into the sort of it's someone lying or making this up or wasting police time. It's not, in the vast majority of cases. It's someone who has genuinely seen something odd, and who knows what that thing might be. And out of public spirited reasons has phoned the police or whoever, and in this case has set off this like a craze for people seeing drones where there aren't drones. That's my view.
I'm not gobsmacked. None of us are believers in the Gatwick drone here, but for many reasons. But are there many examples of, perhaps in a sort of a weirdly malicious way, where modern folklore might be triggered for commercial reasons? It would suit you or be of interest of you if you're trying to sell a product to get something kicking along.
Yeah, I think so. Think of crop circles, for instance.
Yeah,
remember that?
Well, I used to drink in the pub where, in the bar, there was two posh bars at the top. You've probably been to it, that bar at Honey Street. But down beneath, there was a real rough bar for the locals. And that's where all the graph paper for all the designs used to be up on the wall. It was great news for the farmers. That was fantastic money in coin. It's funny how you could only see them you could see them from your helicopter. I'm going off topic, isn't it? But all of them were very visible from local hilltops. It's a funny old thing, that.
Yeah, I mean, and that whole thing was a hoax by two guys who are now no longer with us, but
Yeah.
they were, I think, from Hampshire, and they lived for a while in Australia, and they'd seen these weird sort of swirls in the reed beds in Queensland, which are I don't know, they're caused by mini whirlwinds. So when they came back to England, I think it was in the late 70s, they used to go out for a drink every Friday night at the Devil's Punch Bowl in Sussex, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they must have read something about UFOs or something in the newspapers at the time, because it was huge in the 70s. And they just thought, well, wouldn't it be a laugh after we come out of the pub? We'll go and make one of like a big circle in the field at the Devil's Punch Bowl, and it'll look as if a flying saucer's landed. And people are bound to see it because loads of people drive through there. And apparently they were doing this every Friday night for about 18 months before anyone noticed it.
We used to. I used to go out early in the morning there. Sorry, I'm batting in, but I used to go out. I used to go out and work early in the morning, and quite often you'd hear around a corner in those Wiltshire lanes, and there'd be some old blokes with sticks going on the side of the road. But it was fantastic.
You see, with crop circles, people wouldn't accept, and so a lot of people still don't accept that they're created by human beings. With rollers and bits of string and things. I've actually been out in a field and seen them do it. Yeah, it is amazing.
It is amazing.
And I think we may be digressing from drones here, but
yeah, we are a bit. Sorry.
It's a similar sort of thing. You said about, do people use it for commercial purposes? Well, crop circles now have been used for all kinds of advertising, haven't they? Even there's a famous Led Zeppelin album cover that used crop circles, and I'm sure drones are being used for similar sort of circumstances, aren't they? You know, like you used to get the Goodyear blimp sort of advertising things. That again, that triggered off lots of sightings of odd things in the sky. Maybe someone is trying to make a point. I don't know, but it's causing a lot of problems.
I think probably what Gary was getting at was the fact that obviously it's created an entire business for the counter drone industry of Gatwick. They've done very well out of it. I still think you would have to be very, very naughty to do that, to think we'll get some counter drone sales. But it's not beyond the realms of feasibility because there's a lot of money in it. But it doesn't. I still think there's a lot more innocent explanation in this case.
We do know that one complete system that was not physically in the United Kingdom at the time made a great deal of hay out of it and semi-pretended. They didn't deny that nobody actually asked them, oh, did you actually have any gear in the country? But they spoke as if they did in all the press stuff, and all the coverage was mentioning them. So they did brilliantly out of it. Really a fantastic advertising job.
It's on Wikipedia still that the Israeli drone down was there, even though it wasn't.
Oh, you said it. I didn't.
But didn't all the other, didn't quite a number of the other airports, Heathrow and Birmingham and Leeds, all then order some of this same equipment? You know, the anti-drone stuff.
They haven't bought the stuff at the same cost. I think this is part of the. This is one of the funny issues that's come out of Gatwick after all this. Drama and then legislation. You know, if people genuinely thought there was a drone there and it needed doing, you would invest. You would put the same system in all the other airports, and we're not doing that. As you see, there's airports. You know, they're doing things to the press, or the police are being told, and the police are doing it, and they're saying, "Oh, we've seen a drone over the airport, and now we've had to come down with our counter UAS gear now." The police can't afford that kind of money off their budgets, and a lot of it needs to be physically set up with, like actual towers to receive the radio waves or whatever it is, the beaming about between them. So it's not something you can just like turn up with out of the back of a car. So it's quite an open secret that all the police have got is the Aeroscope, which is a DJI system, which is about 20k system there, 15-20k thereabouts. Whereas the Gatwick system, I think it's a couple of £1 million. So really what's happening is either the airports aren't investing at all, and they're just calling the local police drone team, and the police drone team then not necessarily even the same day rock up with the gear looking for the drone. By which point, if something serious is happening, it's way too late. So yes, there'll be some airports that have got their own aeroscope. Maybe there's a few airports that have invested in systems that are still high end, but not necessarily the same system. I think Newcastle Airport's one of them. I think they've got a US system. But yes, there are some, but it's clearly not the case that all the airports have felt the need to invest in counter drone, which is all. It's all a little bit odd, and we have this pretend game. This is why they keep saying national security, and that's just because we are trying to pretend that all the airports have counter drone when they don't. Yeah. And this is years on, and really, I think it's. I mean, this has been said on Twitter. When people are doing tweets saying, "Oh, we've got a problem with drone flying around airport," and saying, "Well, that's not very clever. You're putting this on Twitter because every terrorist group." Can read this on Twitter. You are literally putting a target on your own back. If someone wanted to come to the UK and think, which airport hasn't got protection, you just need to see which has been making drama in the local newspaper saying, some kid's been flying the drone about and it's bothered them.
It's created a lot of nonsense. So again, in the folklore sort of side of things, when things are found out, how do people back down in a similar sort of way every time once hoaxes are discovered, or
no,
they don't
no, they just it's well known thing in psychology. It's cognitive dissonance. It's like when people say that they've seen something or believe something, you produce evidence that disproves that, and rather than sort of turn around and say, well, maybe I was mistaken, then it actually increases their belief that they saw something, paranormal or whatever. So they just become more and more certain that it couldn't possibly be something ordinary. Particularly when like in the Gatwick example, you've got the Sussex police having spent, what was it, £800,000 on this?
Yeah.
Huge amount of money. I think there's a similar thing going on with them in that they don't want to accept that there was no drone because it looks like they've just wasted an enormous amount of public money. And I think that explains all the secrecy and the fact that they will just not engage with serious questions about, well, tell us, let's have some specifics about this then.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with that. And Ian's fantastic foyers have revealed from the DFT. I mean, Ian, you just say it's not for me to say what you've uncovered, but it's just amazeballs. And then today, I see you can also add to this. You've also uncovered the way in which they store their emails, which is it's more frightening than the Gatwick thing.
It's a slightly different, but I'll just before I jump onto that, I'm just thinking of a point. It's like, it was going back to the police thing as well, which I said before, really frustrating, the very fact that just this exception that you don't normally get in a case like this, the police officer being honest and saying there might not be a job, instead of giving the pat on the back and realising that guy could have saved a considerable amount of public money, it's get rid of him.
He was the bloke in the helicopter incident. He was those coppers in the helicopter incident saying, "Hang on a minute, this might not be what we think it is." He was that group of people, wasn't he? To a certain extent, if you get my drift. Anyway, sorry, Ian, take it away.
Yeah. So I just think such a shame as we said before. But yes, so freedom of information. I'm really surprised by this one, and David will know himself. I'm doing freedom of information. It's quite a frustrating exercise in that generally any daft reasons given not to try and answer you, and a lot of it's completely unreasonable, and the law really just isn't being properly enforced. It's especially like Sussex Police, the ICO's done rulings against them and said, you're breaking the law, you need to sort it out. They never do, and nothing happens. And really what should be happening is huge fines need levying on the bodies, and then the bodies will suddenly think, we're going to have to do it because we get huge fines. So there's a big question there why that isn't happening. But so when this I put freedom of information, this is basically because what I've been able to do, because not getting straight answers, was just saying, can I have emails between date X and Y and this subject, and then reading through what's left of the emails after they've butchered them and taken anything they can out that looks a bit sexy, and then it's trying to piece together what was going on. And I don't know why. I mean, I just thought on it. I'm going to just put in a straight question. So I did. I said, and especially I think with the time lapse, and I just said, with hindsight and what information you have, what is your view on this was to the DFT on the dates that the alleged drone was seen at Gatwick, and also do you hold any description? And I said, so it's like fast, slow, big, small, quad, hex, etc.
Basic stuff, basic.
Yeah, so I just laid it all out as a very, question of, tell it to me straight. Because at first, actually, I'd asked, was it industrial size? And then I actually they kind of said no, but I kind of knew they were playing because if I want something literally, is it this? I will put it in quotes. As though it's a search wanting doing. And here I hadn't. I specifically just wanted it. I was asking that as a general thing. So I wasn't saying, did it have to literally be like this? It's in your view, is it industrial sized? And instead, I just got the impression they had tried to use that literally so they could essentially not lie to me, but not tell me the truth either. So that's when I went back and said, I put it the question that way of, just so I could get a straight answer. And then the response was, we're going to do the, it said basically that this is covered by national security, but we're going to apply the public interest test. And normally when that happens, and funny, even the journalist said at the time on Twitter, he said, that means public sector interest. And I didn't expect anything to come back of it. So when I got the response back, I genuinely opened it up and read it, and I thought, I can't be getting this. Can't be real. I closed the browser down, clicked the link again to do it, just to make just so that I genuinely wasn't seeing it. He's like, I'm not seeing things. They really have answered, and they said straight. They said, the DFT, we do not have any record of the description of the Gatwick drone. So that means. We've seen no video, no photos, but kind of everyone assumed that there would be a description. People would have assumed that someone thinks it's industrial sized, or someone thinks it's white, or it's red, or it has these specific colour lights and was doing this and was so fast, or whatever. And literally, when you actually read the emails that were going around at DFT at the time, what's left of them. What was happening was the DFT were grabbing all the stuff that was in the media. So, they're getting the Sky News report, the BBC, the papers, and they were sending that round on a collective email, and they're all reading that. So I think really what was happening was everyone was reading what the press was saying and thinking, well, there must be a drone there because the press is saying it's there. And look, they've got a photo there of it, even though that photo, like Eddie Mitchell's photo, where it's actually of the police helicopter. He even said on Twitter it's a police helicopter, and then the Sun used it and said this is the drone, even though he said it's not, and it didn't matter. And so I think there's almost been I think the press have inadvertently been part of this flow of misinformation, where everyone's thought, well, we don't even have to really worry about the description. It was there, and it's like, well, no. If you've got all these reliable witnesses, surely that tells you really it hasn't come that close, and they haven't seen anything. It has just been, I've seen a light, and no one's. That's just not been significant enough for someone to go into DFT and say it. But just to dot the I's and cross the T's, I have put the request in. Oh yes, here to the Civil Authority as well. And said, in the light of the DFT saying they don't have a description.
That's a beautiful thing, isn't it? You've got evidence from the DFT that you're now firing off at the CAA. It's a beautiful thing here. You are the hashtag hero of the Battle of Gatwick.
It's the only way to do it, because what would happen then is the CAA would normally, at this point, they would just, whether they did or they didn't, they would just say, national security. But when the DFT themselves have applied the test and said the description of the Gatwick drone or absence of a description is not a matter of national security in that the public interest, it goes above that. I think for any other organisation, especially if you're, whether I'm right or wrong, the way I'm told it, like your CAAs in the hierarchy, your DFT's higher. So if the DFT have said this is to be released, then if the CAA happen to hold that information, they should be honest and come straight either way as well. Now, what you were getting at earlier actually is I was just trying to get, because with the DFT, they must be doing a search of the server, because if I ask for terms, they will say there is literally, because usually what the excuse is say, we've tried to run this search term and there's 72,356 matches. That's too much for us to go through, and they'll try and knock it back on that. So I always say, give me the first 10 in that case, and you can't argue about that then, because at least you get something back.
You're lucky you've got a response at all, because just about everything that I've tried to ask for in the last 18 months, mainly from Ministry of Defence, it's just, because of COVID, we're unable to sort of access the material because it's locked in a drawer somewhere, and we're not allowed to go into the room to open the drawer because of all the rules and regulations about COVID. And you just know it's just nonsense. It's just another excuse not to respond to your request.
They hope you'll give up in the end if they keep pushing back. Whereas I've got, I've had ones where they tried it out 9 months and it's like, no, I was until I get something back. But no, so yeah, it's we'll see what comes out of the CA. But yeah, what I'd ask, because the DFT, they must be searching the server because they're so specific. They come back quite quickly. They give you all the description. So I don't know if they've really been honest with me or they're playing games, but I can only assume they're being honest because they put it there and it's in black and white now that the CAA are saying that they have no ability to search the email server, that they ask the staff individually to go through their own email, grab them out and send them back to them for freedom of information, which concerns me really, because if something has gone on that shouldn't have gone on, and that's in the email, well, then the staff member can just hit delete. And, they've said they have a retention policy of 30 days and anything after that would vanish. So really all that, any information the CAA hold could just be made to vanish. And yeah, I do find that of a slight concern really, because other organisations have gone back to.
That's the other thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the other thing. They'll just say, "Oh, sorry, we've got this thing where we only retain information for X amount of time, and it's been destroyed."
Yeah.
Well, this is, to me, is actually much. Forget drones, forget myths and legends, or whatever. This is a bigger story. This is much worse. That this is the case. And well done for finding it out. It's just astonishing. From day one, the drone industry has said this almost certainly didn't happen. It could have happened, but almost certainly couldn't, because the weather was wrong, and if there was somebody doing something malicious, they would have done it. There wouldn't be this half-baked. It wouldn't have been a half-baked thing. The narrative about other cyber stuff going on at the time is also very, very interesting. And that's come at me from lots and lots of angles. Other airports were affected around the world. Other things were happening. This may yet be a cover-up for something else altogether, or it might just be Chicken Little and the sky's falling in. But it has certainly disrupted lots of passengers. The one document which we're never going to get to is the senior air traffic controller officer's log on that shift that night, because that will have exactly who made that call, at exactly what time it happened, and what the actions he or she took, and why he or she took those actions, and the chain of command that sent that chicken running after the acorn fell on its head. But we'll never get to that because that's hidden. The air traffic. So I think I'm right in saying that, aren't I? And the air traffic stuff is not FOIA-able.
Because they're a private company. Anything with a private company, you can't get the information.
So here's a question, Ian. Have you tried freedom of information to see if anyone from the CAA based at Gatwick went out and tried looking for the drone?
Yeah.
Well, we know. I don't know if the good professor realizes that one of our I should have asked Richard on. Richard, the ex-CAA barrister, who happened to have an address near there was fingered by the police for it just because he was a drone owner. But he was he was the CAA's barrister, you know. And the police went and knocked on his door, and we should have had him on. I should have asked him on. It was just, it's a nonsense, isn't it? So, are we never going to find out the truth of this then, from the myths and legends point of view?
It's a classic example of what I would call a visual epidemic, in that someone plants an idea into something where there's a lot of anxiety and sort of uncertainty, and then suddenly people start latching onto this and saying that they've seen the same thing. And I think that there's the FOIs that Ian's got hold of recently really brings this into focus, because I found it absolutely stunned to learn that this went on for 48 hours. Was it from the Friday, 9 p.m. on the Friday? And the last one was something like was it in the afternoon of
it was more
Sunday?
than 48 hours. It was the 19th it started, and it finished on the 21st towards the end of the day.
It's about 72. It was 52 to 72 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, what's trying to happen, and maybe why the bit of confusion is, the head of the drone or the operation from Sussex Police, the head of that, has been trying to rewrite the timeline in interviews and that, and saying it was basically the moment that the counter UAS turned up, maybe, you know, as soon as that turned up, the drone was scared off, and after that it was all done and dusted, and everyone went home and had a nice cup of tea and some cake.
Cakes, yeah.
But that's not actually at all true. It went on into the third day, and you had the sightings. And why there's probably a desire to rewrite history and hoping we don't notice is, you know, that the only two conclusions you can come from that is the counter drone systems don't work properly, which I wouldn't go for, because they have been tested at other airports, and you've got more than one of them. So one might have the failure, it won't necessarily be true of the other. But yes, that would be because of one conclusion you could draw. The other conclusion you could draw is that the sightings were a load of crap. And, you know, if that last sighting is wrong, then you can't argue all the others are valid as well. So it's better to try and pretend that didn't happen, and then you can keep on to this thing that all your sightings are really robust when they're not.
Well, I can say for definite the Metis system that showed up, that works. That'll see a drone. I know that for a fact. So as soon as that shows up and they go, you know, if it's not seen anything for X amount of time, because I know the system and I know it works, it's like, okay.
Yeah, and see, we know for a fact that was up on the 21st, because that was one of the photos that Eddie Mitchell, he was live, he was kind of photographing it as he was going round, and he just happened to get that. And then, funnily enough, after Gatwick, they got a bit casual, and Metis did a marketing video about their system and
they
put
did.
the brand on with the registration plate in. So, you know, all this national security stuff, again, looks very comical, because you've literally done a YouTube video with the same van on, with the registration plate in, you know. When I hear all this, and it just seems so like, you know, it's like a modern episode of Benny Hill, really.
But I mean, is it? We've had this for the past since 2015 or 2014. There's a drone. It's going to hit an aircraft. A drone is going to cause a problem. A drone's going to do this. A drone's going to do that. Balpa have pushed it. You know, all these people have just been pushing. And this red light, like David has said, that little red light becomes that little bit of a myth. You know, it's been planted. The seed's been planted for the past 4 to 5 years. And all of a sudden, that little phone call and the light switch is switched on. Everyone sees that light and it's a drone. It is, as David said, it's been fed to us for so long. It's going to happen. It's happened. And it becomes that myth, and that's it. And it's run away, hasn't it?
Well, it's been allowed to change regulations. It's been allowed to be mentioned in Parliament frequently. It's been allowed to be used as can't think of a term, some sort of a whipping thing, whatever that term is, against the industry. It's just not cricket, you know.
It's not, and any legislation that's been based upon Gatwick actually is now it's kind of flawed, if you like. It's a flawed legislation. It's quite interesting, really.
It's a bit like the Dangerous Dogs Act. Do you remember when they passed
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
People had been bitten by dogs, and there was a huge scare about that.
I mean, it's going to get quite interesting because at what point will, if the tower has the name of the person that phoned in the drone, so let's face it, Gatwick, in the log, they should have the name of the person that phoned in. At what point does the police investigate that person for wasting police time? This is where it gets really interesting because the police should be able to look at that log and go, who is this person? We spent 800k. Not only that, what about these millions of people? So we had the Dieselgate problem, didn't we, with diesel cars, where you can now claim if you had a VW because its emissions weren't running out. At what point can someone go, we're going to sue Gatwick for no drone being there?
Well, I think Professor Clark, I mean, it could have been a light on a crane. It doesn't have to be a malicious call in. It's just somebody saying, oh, I've seen something. And then really probably what it more reflects is not that call that person made, but the fact that there wasn't an action plan in place. Oh, someone thinks they've seen something over there, right? Well, what are we going to do about it then? And then you'd think there'd be a chain of actions that grown-ups would take to confirm or deny that, and then move it forward from whatever, rather than just go, oh, let's shut the airport. You know, that's my simplistic take on it, perhaps.
And the worst bit is in my head is on the first night it happened at 9 p.m. It was raining and it was not gentle winds either. How many drones would survive in that weather for any amount of time? An M210 wouldn't stay in the air for its entire battery in those conditions. You know what I mean? And that would be considered an industrial-sized machine. Yeah. It's just not going to survive that.
Well, that was a smell test from night one, wasn't it? It was like, the weather's horrible, and it didn't achieve anything. So the weather was horrible. So you could go if your intent was malicious, and you could go and get a job done, and you would have done it. And that's that. We would have heard about that, but they didn't, and no one else saw it. So the weather was horrible. So, and it wasn't going, flying back and forth, and it's evading. Well, that's how the media then built it up, didn't they? Yes. It's hiding behind stuff and dodging out the way, and this and that, and
that's because when you move. When you physically walk somewhere, the light that you're looking at in the background, it's a tall crane, seems to move position because parallax effect.
Maybe you might have something there, but I prefer to think it's a drone dodging back and forth and evading capture. That's what I prefer to think.
So that light wouldn't appear to move behind a building.
Much better story than just the light on a crane.
I've heard an account as well, because the one thing that obviously we all kind of question is why didn't the drone operators that know the industry, when they were questioned, on the TV and on the radio, bring up a few of these points. But I've been given a sort of kind of a second-hand account, but was told that one of the PIFCOs that was on the BBC, they'd been specifically told which topics they could cover and were told to talk about terrorism and that. So they were specifically guided and actually raised it to the producer and said, you're breaching BBC guidelines here because you're telling me what to say. I didn't turn up on the show after that. So I'm told that's the case. And if that is, that's, again, it's, you don't expect the BBC to be clickbait. So if that's true, that really concerned me.
Well, then there was another PFCO who had the ear of one of the ministers straight after this and made sure that that their company's viewpoint was expressed and sorted out. So money was made all around off of this incident by people exploiting fear, which again, I suppose lots of urban legends also use fear to sell stuff or motivate stuff.
They certainly do. Anyway, chaps, wonderful discussion, but the men in black have just arrived at my door.
Excellent. Good. Well, that's because we made sure they had your address and not ours. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me on,
Professor Clark. Thank you.
Do keep me in the loop on this.
Yeah,
we will. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Cheerio.
Cheers.
Good night. Cheers. Yeah.
just astounding, isn't it? And it does amaze me that even the CAA, you know, they actually are based at Gatwick. They're just around the corner, aren't they, at the airport? They're actually,
Yeah.
they're literally
They're going to answer some questions now. Look.
You know, you would think the CA would have gone, there's no chance of a drone. It's raining. You know, they're meant to be experts, earned everything. You think they'll be going, we don't. Although I suppose they can't interfere with Gatwick itself because it's a different company and everything. But if they were asked at all, that would be interesting to know. That would be, you know, I think there should be a freedom of information there. Were Gatwick, you know, the drone UAS sector, were they help in any way?
But this isn't even. We're not even talking about the one I thought that was really interesting that Ian had sent through, but we're not talking about that one yet, are we? There was one you sent a couple of days before with this fantastic expose one. There's lots of stuff going on, and Ian's done many questions have exposed an awful lot of emails. And it's.
I was going to say just a quick note on that. Just because it needs to sit somewhere, the information. I've started updating the Gatwick drone Wikipedia page. So revelations that are coming out of the freedom of information are going on to that. So I was actually looking back. So, for example, the Airport Operators Association did a private email to the DFT saying that the media had asked them basically about how well airports were protected. And they made it quite clear they were very reluctant to tell the media the truth on the matter. They didn't want to speak to them. But the DFT had basically given instructions saying it's quite fine. In fact, specifically, they gave an instruction to every single police force in the country that you cannot discuss counter drone or any protections that the airports do or not do have, or do not have. So it kind of finds that. So there's quite clear in that we're going to silence everything. We're not discussing this this topic about whether we should have been prepared. And going on from that as well, you could see specifically how the legislation, the drone bill specifically, it's even mentioned, was going to be used as this is our proof that we are responding to this. So yes. This is political, politicized legislation. Yeah. That's so unfortunate because that's always your worst legislation. So I'm not saying any of this. Someone thought, we want to get this in, we'll use that. I don't think that at all, but I do think it became then perfect as this is something because with the Labour Party are bashing us, the media are bashing us. We can use this to say how firm and strong we've been, and we've seen since that. Every MP sort of just ever so keen. Even on the Labour Party, they're saying, Gatwick, and they don't realise that this legislation is as bad as the policing bill that you've got your protesters out on the street for. It's just more of the same. It's just targeted at drone pilots. Literally, someone being alarmed by a drone. That's all they have to be, is someone being alarmed. And the police have got the right to...
So what gets really interesting, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but in one of the PFCO groups, one of the commercial groups,
yes,
one of the PFCO holders was actually had their collar felt, as in they were actually doing something perfectly legal. They got caught. The police came along, said hello, introduced. They looked at their logs there and then to make sure they're in flying, no higher than 120 meters.
Worse than that, though. Just to elaborate on it, they weren't just asking for the logs for that flight. I think they're going back to logs historically. Yeah. Let's see everything done.
Yeah, so everything that was in the iPad they could see. They want to see all the flight logs for that aircraft. And then what they said is, email us your ops manual as well, won't you? And it's not them to look at a PFCO holder or audit them, or CA operational authorization holder. It's not for the police to audit us. That's down to the CAA. But Cheshire Police Force, they were going, we want this, this, and this. And what's really interesting, in the UK, if you ever get pulled by a police officer, until you get to interview, that's where they will hang. That's where they will string you along to hang yourself. And then at that point, that's where they will formally charge you. So if you ever end up in the interview room, you do not say squat, because unless they can charge you there and then, just keep your mouth shut. Don't hang yourself, whatever you do. You know, this.
But that's massive overreach. Do they? I can't think of I can't think of another. Do they an industry that they might go? Well, they wouldn't go to British Airways and ask for the ROTS manual. That's for sure.
Put it this way, an analogy that I thought was an analogy. It's the equivalent of the police stopping taxi drivers and saying, "Give us all your dash cam footage that you've taken from all your all the fares you've been doing for the last weeks." You wouldn't. People would be up in arms, and if they stopped motorists and said, "Give us all your dash cam footage. Let's see if you've gone 1 mile an hour over the limit."
Well, it's like saying, "Give me all the photos in your phone for the past month."
Unfortunately, the industry's been stitched up because of Gatwick so much, and so many nasty gotchas have been put in there, that here, if you come on, here's a top tip: if you come on holiday to South Africa, there will always be a row of trees about 10 kilometers outside of any town that you're going to visit. And that's where the police sit, because our traffic police fund themselves with the fines. So they will be under those trees, and they go out of their way to get people for the slightest of things, to get cash for the municipality. And it strikes me, it's almost like the police, it's a low, because any arrest or prosecution, it's not that they want the money in this case, it's they want to be able to say, and a successful prosecution of, and then their figures go up and they look better and better and better.
The thing that worries me as well, though, it could be you could have cases more sinister than that, because you do get police officers that will do work in their own time, and so you could have, because I think this was a drone team. So if you had a drone team and one of them's doing commercial work, you might literally be wanting to take the competition out. So then he can then use their clients. Now, we don't know, and I'm not suggesting that's the case here, but that's a slippery slope you could be going down.
Now, Andrew's mentioning warrants. This is exactly what's happened. They've removed you. It's on suspicion, isn't it? It's just on suspicion now. Yeah. They don't need a warrant at all. Even if they suspect you have equipment in the boot of your car, they can open the boot of your car. If it's in your house,
which that hasn't come in yet. This kind of proves you don't need a drone bill, because the police are already going beyond what legal access. So yes, now you need a warrant, and just because this pilot is completely legitimate and nothing to hide, he's shown this to the police. But the whole point is he shouldn't have had to. And then the moment he's refusing, you can imagine what had happened. It's like, they'd be then hassling him and say, "Oh, we'll take you down the station anyway," or this or that, or whatever they think they can do. And then it's up to him. He'd have to then go legal on the police for the fact that they were being unreasonable. And he shouldn't be in that situation in the first place. But this does get me worried. I mean, thankfully, I don't bother flying drones anymore because I don't want any of this hassle. But if I was, and if I were doing it commercially, I would be joining the communication workers. The journalists union, one like that Eddie Mitchell will be in, because.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff I would do is anyway. If I was a PIFCO, I'd be doing a few things of locally things were going on. I'd film some of it with my drone anyway, because then you can put that in the newspapers, gets you a bit of extra exposure. But at the same time, you can use that as a part of your press credentials, and then you've got the unions on your side, their entire legal teams. That they'll take, if the police then act outside the law, their lawyers will tear them apart, and you'll be getting compensation, you'll be getting your back and all that with no messing about. So I think really, if I was working commercially now, I'd be getting the union membership and getting the legal cover that comes with that. I did try to ask insurers, and I haven't got a straight answer yet, because I did ask the Moonrock first, and they're going to look into it. I suspect it's not, but I just said, as part of your cover, do you have any legal cover? Because a police officer can say you're breaking law, but if he's wrong and you're not, you want legal cover to give you that protection.
I'm sure.
I do think if insurers don't do that, they really do need to think about even offering that, an extra payment per month. And you've got legal backup. So if you get in these disputes, which when that drone bill comes in, you're bound to get into it.
Yeah, it's coming in and talking about disputes and legal. Here's Bruce.
Yeah.
How was your scan, Bruce? You all right?
It's great, and now my phone picks up 5 bars of signal. It's fabulous.
Did you get the vaccine as well? Because I mean, you're
Yes,
double gates then, aren't you? If that's the case, well, that's grand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad that was okay. And I should have mentioned at the top, and I didn't. That flipping Richard from Altitude Angel had the temerity to not turn up when I emailed him in the show last week, and his feeble excuse was that his wife was in labour, and congratulations to Richard's wife, they've had a baby. But I think personally that's a feeble excuse for not answering when called. But there we are. No, so congratulations to you, and glad to see you're back in action there. We are deep in the throes. You missed the interesting bit about, or there'll still be more interesting bits about Gatwick, about the no evidence. And Ian's done just a beautiful thing. He's uncovered that there were no descriptions of the thing, and he's got the evidence from the DFT, and now he can ask the CAA.
Our Ministry of Transport will be deeply disappointed because the Gatwick incident is pivotal in their push for stronger drone regulations in New Zealand. Oh my goodness, that will be terrible.
Well, that's it, isn't it? How do we undo this? How do we make sure? Now, Ian's mentioned that he's putting stuff on Wikipedia and getting it out there, because this is a book. It's almost a documentary. Ian, this is a book in itself, isn't it? Of the truth lined up, and you get to the point where the truth is a truth, isn't it? And when you line timelines up and people's statements and the evidence that you gathered, it makes it indisputable that there was nothing there. Anyway, I've ranted, sorry.
but yeah, and it's terrible how it's influencing other countries.
Yeah,
their laws. It's bad enough it has an impact on us, but the fact that Bruce has now got politicians that are going, oh well, because of Gatwick. Well, Bruce is now going to go, well, there was no drone at Gatwick, and yeah. There needs to be I was thinking I'll probably be emailing Ian after this, going, I need to do something on this.
Oh, no. The problem is politicians will only believe what they want to believe. They'll just ignore the inconvenient facts and focus on what they've been told by their highly regarded experts and eyewitnesses, and we're all wrong. What would we know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like the press guy. Who was the photographer?
Eddie Mitchell.
Yeah, so it's like these quality witnesses, as Bruce just said. Well, he took a photo, and as he zoomed in, the evidence is there. It's a helicopter. It's this witness who's highly credible because he's a professional in media, and he'd taken his photos. Quite easily proved, Bruce, there was no drone there for you. Don't forget. Let's not forget that.
That picture.
But it was in the BBC. In fact, they even linked to a BBC story saying about there's a drone at Gatwick. In the document for discussion of the proposed new rules, they linked to the BBC News Service story that said there was a drone at Gatwick. And the BBC, they're highly regarded. They wouldn't get it wrong.
Oh, sadly, as we know, the BBC is not all it's cracked up to be.
Well, that would have been... So the good professor that joined us, there was a case in the 70s in the UK where they thought there was an IRA helicopter, and that got a bit Chicken Little like this, until some copper said, hang on, or a group of policemen said, hang on, this is getting expensive, and we've only got one person's word for this. We're stopping this. And that's what almost happened at Gatwick. One copper did say there's no real evidence. And then his name, how many times has his name come up in the emails afterwards? It was a huge number, wasn't it? Because that was another great one you did. You requested how many?
Yeah, I asked him. It was called Tingley. So funnily enough, it's where I found all the stuff in that. What happened there was it all just got redacted. Anything about him, it was more or less removed. So it was like about 90 pages. It was almost useless because of all the stuff taken out. But it left bits over, nothing to do with Tingley, but then shed a light on other things. So it did actually prove a few useful points in there, like the AOA that we just discussed. That was in there. But someone who redacting it didn't even think to redact that because they were just thinking he's just after tingly stuff. So sometimes you inadvertently get stuff because they're just trying to remove the stuff you've asked for.
Yeah, you need some sort of industry awards. There's this awful industry award thing been set up that is just it's full of the usual suspects, but you need to generate a proper one that you're rewarded for being the hero of the Battle of Gatwick. I really think that, Ian. It's all going to come out in the wash, and you have a target on your back. Or
just on the point of mentioning Eddie as well, there was another, because it was interesting. There was a guy on Twitter called @LightHackers. Now, he's a professional director of photography, 405 credits. He shoots for Sky News. He's got 30 years experience. He was at Gatwick as well the whole time. And he says there wasn't a drone there. You know, anyone there, these are people that genuinely had the gear, that genuinely have the credibility to say, I know what a drone looks like. My camera can shoot it. And I've seen nothing other than the police helicopter and the police drones. And those are the people that actually should be being listened to.
So when did the countermeasures get put in? Were the countermeasures there after the first day or so? And if so, were those countermeasures?
They were there for the second day, and that's why you can actually listen to it online. The head of the police operation has tried to rewrite history and say that when the counter UAS turned up, all the nonsense stopped. But he didn't, because he went on to the third day, which the DFT, you've got it there black and white, have confirmed that's the case. So no one can deny it because it's there. It's a matter of record that the airport was closed again. This guy, his team, people above him, they were all there then. They were all part of that decision. They could have stopped it. They could have said, well, our counter UAS shows there's nothing there. There's absolutely no need to. So the very fact they saw fit to close the airport proves that no people thought the sightings with the eye were credible.
Unless, of course, the ATC's been taken down by, say, ransomware or something.
Maybe that sort of thing could have happened, perhaps, and then
I know
maybe that could have happened. Yes, you do, because it's just
the hospital was very quiet.
You just installed it.
We got free parking because even the parking computers are all ransomwared out, and it was great. So I had to ring and make sure that they still had the spinny roundy magnet with your head in it thing going, which they did. But the ransomware people were very nice. They didn't turn the power up too high, so my fillings have just cooled down. I'm good now.
So hang on a minute. Even the parking meters are actually online and can get
everything
hacked.
Is connected, and the thing is, like, they have a thing you're supposed to sign in when you go in, and it's like this little tablet and you tap around and whatever that doesn't work either. Nothing works. Absolutely nothing in the hospital is working. The phones don't work. I tried to ring and you get, this number is not in service. Everything is so interconnected through the computers that the whole place has just gone down. I'm surprised the lights were going. And someone commented, I think on my tweet, that it's really worrying when everything is connected to the internet, isn't it?
Well, you would think that a hospital, if it's going to have a network, it would be a self-contained hospital network, so it's all in its own little bubble. And then very rarely it might have its own connection to another hospital, but it wouldn't be connected to the internet itself, because that, of course, would be stupid.
Well, that's the same with all infrastructure, though. All infrastructure should have its own
pipelines,
physically and logically isolated network from the internet. The internet is for people and hackers and gamers. It's not for science and medicine and infrastructure management. It's so easy. Of course, you've got this system manages your electrical grid. Well, let's just put a gateway to the internet so that George can work from home today as he monitors the systems. No, I'm sorry, you can't do that. There should be specifically certified hardware is the only stuff that can connect to those infrastructure networks. It's like, I don't understand why we have all this internet of things we can break from our computers. And I wrote a column last week saying that the best paying job in IT now is not what you think it is. It's ransomware.
Well, so if you look at there have been lots of ransomware, notified ransomware attacks at air traffic facilities around the world in the last 3 years, and it doesn't have to be the radar. It could just be that parking machine. It could be the kettle. It could be the fridge. If you ring them up and say, I'm going to turn the lights off on the fridge, that would scare the bejesus out of them. You don't need to touch any of the systems. That was
What's the code for warm beer? What's the official international code for warm beer?
There would be a warm beer emergency code. That's for certain.
I mean, it's like the most common error is the airport has bought that smart fridge or that smart kettle or something, and no one's changed the password on it. Because if you don't change the password from admin, it just means anyone else can then find its IP, go admin, and they've got control of it. That's how
I thought it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh well, there we are. That's why I've been able to get it.
You'll have to change it now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's something was afoot there. It was either a good-natured spotting of a light that just went out of hand, and they got too far too fast and couldn't.
Wasn't it a model helicopter? I thought there was a couple of model helicopter did it.
Yeah, local couple. Yeah, that's it. Local couple. Or it was Richard. CAA barrister. It was him. It was either him or a local couple.
It was probably Ian's mental drone, the one that used to take off when it landed. That was what it was. The one that had the crimped wire with the air unit. Didn't watch that video.
Long range flying from Wales on a windy night. So it's probably westerly wind, so that'd be all right because you get across there quite quickly from Wales. So that'd be all right. That'd be fine. I don't know. When do you think, Ian of the FOA, are they going to get annoyed with you for putting all these FOAs in? When are they going to finally tell you to go away?
I think they're already annoyed with me because they're already on that. And the CAA response today said, I'm the only person that asked for those kind of requests. That they can recall. And I know that isn't true, actually, because I know someone else has definitely requested emails because they're asking emails about themselves. So I know I'm not unique with that one, but I've kind of been forced down that route because nobody will give me a straight answer. In fact, the CAA are one of the ones that's been quite cynical with the freedom of information because they were one of the first ones where I asked about Gatwick and they just said it would take too much time or there'd be too many emails to ask the staff if what had been sent on Gatwick. Gatwick went on for 3 days. There's no way there's too many emails there to at least start providing some of those for review. They just didn't want to send them out. And again, that's you're breaking the law at the end of the day. And hopefully one day the ICO will start being more of an enforcer. But I am with ones that get difficult now. They are going to all get escalated on to the ICO because at least then you get a ruling, and then again you can then say, look, the rulings there that they are out of order, and eventually, it gets embarrassing for those organisations by the fact that you're being seen as not compliant.
I think here in New Zealand, have gone to ICO. Sorry, Bruce. I think. Yeah, go on, Bruce.
Oh no, just here in New Zealand, what they do is if they don't want to respond, they say it's over a certain thing. You've got to pay for their time. For small requests, they'll do it for free. But if it's over a certain threshold, you have to pay for their time to produce the response. And of course, that's why they're putting people off. It'll cost you $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever they want to say. So they've carefully covered their backsides in this country.
There is a degree of that here, so they can do it on cost. But then what you've got to do then is just narrow your request down to the point where it doesn't go. So a lot of stuff that I would have liked, I haven't got because at the end of the day, it would be they would refuse to do it. They would say it's too much volume. And the thing I don't like, and again, is playing the game, is I'll ask for one email. And then they will count the reply, anyone forwarding it as another email and say that's 30 emails when it's not. It's one email. They could just get it at the end of the string when everyone had their bit in it and supply me with that. And they try and count every individual part of it to play those silly games, which unfortunately you can't do much about it at the minute other than sulk about it.
Who's going to play you in the movie then, Ian?
The movie. Oh,
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt. Oh, fair enough.
Now, Peter Kay.
There we are. Look, let's we're going to talk about this again. I know we are.
Yes,
this is the gift that keeps giving, isn't it? So let's quickly, because we've done an hour on that now. That's amazing. Let's quickly jump to the Sony AirPeak. Have we all seen that today? What do we think about the new Sony AirPeak? Other than the awful name of the device, the AirPeak, it's set up for trouble with twitching neighbours, isn't it? That name. What do we think of that video and call for people to help them?
I've not seen this yet, but is this something different to the Sony thing they were doing that I wasn't impressed with? That just looked to me like another. It just looked to me like the kind of thing you do. Yeah, go on.
I'll put it in the comment. Bruce Willis is John there. I'll put it in there. The link's coming in the comments. Look, it's their professional system, which is a Gramsci gimbal and perhaps cobbled together other bits. Quite how much of it of their own IP it is, but I mean, it looks quite tidy in this bit of video. And I don't know, is Ian listening or is he frozen? The other Ian. It's what's your thoughts on it?
It's beginning to look like something that you'd be willing to buy. The early images did look like something someone cobbled together. However, it's starting to look a bit like a product. And as Gary said at the start of the show, there is some interesting little sneak peeks in there. They're making a point on camera functionality. They're clearly still using a Gramsci gimbal, which, look, does Sony need to fully make every component on this? No. If they're using expertise, Gramsci makes some amazing gimbal. So why are we complaining when it's sort of they're using a third party? It's just not what we're used to seeing. But it's starting to look like a real interesting aerial platform. And if they get the integration right, which they should do because they released the SDK, I think they could get a few people worried. And it really isn't about DJI. This really is about the big cine lifters, the people like FreeFly and the others who have sort of grabbed that M600-ish market, because the M200 isn't this market. DJI do not have a product in this market right now. The Inspire 2 sort of is, but really isn't, because you can't buy the basic of components you need for it today. You've got commercial operators who can't even buy the SSDs you need to be able to use it. Batteries are becoming in short supply. The same old things that have happened in the past are happening again, which is the aircraft, for all intents and purposes, is end of life. They just haven't announced it yet. And you've got commercial operators can't even buy the SSDs that you need to be able to record your footage on. But we've been here with this game before and we know how this goes. But it's the other people who really should be worried. Autel aren't in this market. Parrot are not in this market. It's down to the custom builders, and Sony could really put an interesting platform out. And it looks like they are, frankly.
Well, you're an interesting name, aren't you?
I'm still not convinced with this. I've just looked at the video while you're doing it, because to me, Sony, first off, says it's expensive. They're never known for providing, putting stuff out there that's good value for money. They're not like, at least with Panasonic, you get quite a lot thrown in for your money. You really don't. And again, here it's a missed opportunity, because what they're trying to do is get you to buy the Sony mirrorless camera, which is great if you're doing that on the ground footage. But if you're just an aerial photographer, it's an unnecessary amount of weight. So you're having to make a bigger platform to accommodate for that, where they could have integrated the camera in, and that would excite me a lot more. So it does, to me, it still feels very, 2015. It doesn't. It just kind of looks like the self-build thing you're doing. I'd still think in the money of that, I'd build something myself with the Cube. Like with I'm trying to think what they call them now, but I like that. I just get like your carbon fiber frame.
I don't think this is for anyone who has to think about the price. I think this is 20 grand plus. Personally, I think this will instantly be 20 grand before they will have no interest in the 10 grand, maybe 10 grand market. Anything below that, they'll have no interest. How much the cameras are, Ian. How much the lenses are, let alone anything else. Look, talking Sony here, right? This is E-mount is not the cheapest system to get into. I think they have zero interest in this for being basic commercial ops. This is going to be very similar to the M200 territory. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. The M200.
Think people in that space usually have been in the industry longer. They've got their head about them where, they're happy to do their own self-build. They're happy to use the likes of the Cube, where this wouldn't, the idea of something off the shelf, to them, they're not that bothered.
But wouldn't they be able to, oh gosh, I just crashed it, right, just go buy one off of the shelf, get another one. Brings you into that sort of realm of ease.
Then again, with your self-build, there's nothing stopping you have a backup. And you've got to think as well,
True.
The thing that's really appealing at the moment, and again, your TV is asking for the look, is this FPV view. I mean, we even saw that with I think even the Oscars used the flying after that lad had done the one round the bowling alley. It's getting that, the proper FPV view racer. So you now got these people building the small drones that will carry your Sonys, they'll carry your Panasonics, they'll even carry your Red, and also the Zcam, which is really nice gear. So they'll actually, because the thing with the Sony is the mirrorless. It's quite a compromise. They try, for example, it doesn't support all the video features you got on the Panasonic, and it doesn't support stuff that's used commonly by Netflix and even the BBC and the high-end stuff, which it doesn't have anamorphic support. So a lot of these, heaven forbid. So a lot of these phones that you get for $3,000 can actually support far more capable cameras than that. So the only bit that I liked on that video that impressed me, which is so simple, but it's usually a frustration with cameras, is the fact that it had the camera control. But then again, camera controls only for Sony cameras, and you wouldn't be able to stick something else on there other than Sony. And again, you just wouldn't want to be tied into it, because if you switch, if you were on Sony and you're on email, you'll still, if you've got that as a camera gear, you still might switch. I'll go to Canon, or I'll go to Panasonic at some point. You get frustrated with it, you'll switch over. But when you've got a drone as well, you're a lot more kind of tied in. So if you can buy a handheld gimbal, it doesn't force you into one brand of camera. So for me, I see a lot of negatives as well. That unless you really are a Sony fanboy and you're not going to care, and maybe you're newer into the industry and you don't want to go down the self build, there is still a market there. But I'm not convinced.
I think it's up against the Free Fly Alta, basically. It's up against, that's what it's up against. It's the camera control that will make the difference, because if you've got a choice, if it's in the high-end market, so it's definitely filming high-end TV, high-end film stuff, people want cameras that are easy, that they can use. So the director wants, or the DOP wants that camera. They want that Sony on it. And that and then all of a sudden, well, I can have that on the Alta. You know what I mean? If you can have that on the Free Fly Alta 8, why would you choose the new Sony one? The only bit that's good at the minute is the camera, being able to control those camera options.
That is an open SDK. That is an open SDK as well. Now, I think what you're missing is they're going to sell these by the pallet load to studios. That's what this is about. This ain't about commercial ops. This ain't about this. This is people buying FX cameras. This is the people who are going in. They don't build drones. They don't care about building drones. What they'll want to do is you'll have a studio, you'll have the small news outlets, you'll have all of those guys, and Sony will just be wanting to walk through the door and go, right, we will ship you a pallet load of these aircraft with the cameras, everything compatible, ready to go. I think they have a big footprint in certain areas, and I think they can probably benefit from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, production companies would probably, take them, like you say, by the pallet loads. But
are we overthinking it? Isn't this is the entry? This is their entry into the market. This is their dipping their toes in the water, and already we've seen they're adopting sort of DJI tactics of a little leak here, a little bit there, a little bit off to this. A couple of press releases sent to us ahead. Hey, Gary, look, we're giving you this 12 hours ahead of everybody else. They're adopting a little bit of their tactics, and surely this is just their play one to see and have a get their heads around the market properly, and something more will come. I don't know.
Fingers crossed they will give it to some shill on YouTube that just pimps stuff that they're giving for free. They will then they'll be then there with their Instagram doing a live flight of it and crash it into a tree. That's my
well, exactly. Yeah. Well, they've said that in the article. They want people in Japan and the US to try it for them. So they're going down that. They're going down that road.
Of course, they're getting into drones. Drones are going to be worth billions. Have you not read the PricewaterhouseCoopers reports and all these things? The drone market's going to be bigger than the world. It's amazing. You know, that's why we need these rules.
If you look at Sony, look at Sony, right? Use something interesting. They put the sales figures out for the PS5 this week. They sold 7 million PS5s in the first 12 months, which is half the quantity they sold of the PS4s on launch year, simply because of lack of supply, out of their control. They reckon they could have sold over 25 million units if they could have had the stock. So this is still a toy thing for them, bearing in mind what's the numbers here? They've profit of 3 billion for last year based on the PS5. So this is a pet project in the ground.
No, that said, though, you shouldn't be looking at Sony as the group. You should be looking at the actual camera division, because each division will still have to profit in its own right. Like with Panasonic, people will still look at that as the camera division versus what they sell as a whole, because otherwise you kind of skew.
But the camera divisions, for all of them, have been selling less and less over the last 5 years. They've all been struggling. They've all been doing this.
Yes.
Fall off.
Well, they all want you to move towards this Apple closed walled garden thing where they provide everything you need and you're reliant on them for everything. You don't need to go outside their ecosystem to buy something else. In fact, if they do it properly, you can't go outside their ecosystem to buy something else. So if they can sell you the drone and the camera and whatever else and the audio, whatever, then you become owned by Sony or Apple or whoever it might be. I mean, this is a trend. Tesla are doing it with their cars. Apple have done it with their computers and their phones and things. And it is the way big corporations see to get maximum return on their investment, is to lock you into their ecosystem. Don't give you choices. You just take what you throw at them, or they get nothing at all.
They're too cheap as well. This is the problem with cameras right now. No one's, but if we talk about cameras, it's a method of selling more cameras. I'm still shocked Sony hasn't done a handheld gimbal. The market, if you look at the gimbal market, it is completely owned by Chinese manufacturers. The main one, for the most part, that works well is DJI. Next to them, you've got the Xinyun and a few others. But there is no major camera manufacturer in gimbals, which is insane considering it's specifically designed for cameras. Now they're trying, DSLR, mirrorless, if we ignore DSLRs a minute, mirrorless cameras, even the best ones are still crazy cheap. If you think of what the development is, they might be $4 or $5 grand, but considering the volume they're selling them at, it's hard to see how they're making money. So I'm guessing they're looking to try and open a new door, and the drone may even be a loss leader. We might be surprised at the price, but I reckon it's going to be at least 10 grand. They're going to show
as far as cameras go, though, vlogging cameras are the future, aren't they? Aren't we all looking for vlogging cameras? Isn't that where the market's growing? I mean, I watch Cameron Conspiracies, and even he hasn't decided on what's best yet. But everyone, you've got to try them all because they're so cheap, and you end up with mountains of cameras, and none of them are any good. But they still sell lots of product, and that's the game.
I have one Sony, and I have 3 Panasonics. Most of them Ian's fault, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's beginning to look like a product. I think it is beginning to look like a product. And
that video is full of little bits. If you're in the industry, it's full of little bits of, oh yeah, look, as Ian immediately pointed, oh look, he's doing the camera controls, and oh look, it's a Gramsci gimbal. Oh look, they're flying through quite a narrowed spot there. And,
sorry to talk over.
That's right.
The video on it actually looks good as well. In all fairness, but the point that changes everything now. If I was saying that 2015, whatever, I'd be woo, and not just because of the whole package and it being together, but it would be the fact that we didn't have the pressure that there is on the drone industry these days with the regulation. A lot of operators just wouldn't want that because of the legal hassle and the restrictions in the places where you could use it. And especially, I mean, it might be different in other countries, but certainly in the UK, it's a bit of a headache. I think even in the US, probably less so in the US, but you'd still have some thoughts with, actually, I could do the job that I need to do with a much smaller drone. I mean, a lot of your TV stuff is being shot. I mean, there are movies that have got GoPro and Mavic footage in it. At the end of the day, they want the shots. A lot of the aerial shots are normally very brief, a few seconds. So they can get away with lower quality where they have to, especially on the TV shows.
But you got likes of Netflix demanding certain qualified cameras for their stuff. Even short bits of footage has to come from a camera on their list, or you can't submit it as part of your things. And I think it's very unfair of you guys to be talking about this Sony drone when we've got Mark here producing these heavy lift cinema drone thing that he's got there. We should be praising him and promoting his product.
Different Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Any Mark will do. Just pick
Mark
a Mark.
too.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I have flown a 20-kilo machine, for TV for a Netflix series, and the clip was literally only, I don't know, seconds.
Yeah.
And you will lift a red for them, as Bruce says. You will lift that red because that's how it is. But the BBC, for example, using a Phantom, using the Phantom 4 Pro, using the Mavic 2 Pro, for those rising clips, all those smaller TV shows that are like half an hour, the real estate ones, property ones, where you see that rising shot, that's probably done with a Mavic 2 Pro,
And in fairness, with the Netflix stuff, it isn't that black and white, actually. Those Netflix suggest, I think they'll probably bend it on drones anyway, but those on the cameras are where it's their own production. If you're selling to them, they don't care what it's filmed on. And like Amazon, one of the series Bosch, that's shot with a DJI Inspire for the aerial shots.
I don't think any of us could possibly claim to have reached the dizzy heights of Countryfile. I don't know,
Wait till my new Netflix documentary comes out, filmed entirely on this. It'll be groundbreaking in many more ways than one.
I do see, there will be production companies, that Sony will end up in production companies here for TV and film. It will end up there, but it'll be because the DOPs or the director, they want a certain style, they want the Sony camera, they want a certain lens it'll carry. It'll be that kind of thing, and then it'll be brought out. But it's going to be hard pushed to beat an Inspire 2 with an X7.
But I wonder what's going to happen if you want to film and you're near a sensitive installation in the USA, like a nuclear power station, and far off in the distance there's a prison, and the cops come along and say, "Sorry, mate, that's a Chinese drone. You can't use that here."
Yeah, that's already hitting home in the inspection market. People are finally realizing that they can't fly over federal land, because immediately you think, "Oh, military, well, it doesn't really matter to me." Federal land, buildings, bridges, and critical infrastructure, roads. You cannot fly over roads or bridges to inspect them with Chinese gear now.
Because apparently these DJI drones, they drop ransomware as they fly.
Oh dear. Oh dear. But it's not just DJI. Other brands being picked out now as well. But the penny's only just dropping, which is amazing. And I don't know why I wanted to say, people just buying stuff just because it's branded. So you're always, it's going to be an easy sell to the accounts department, isn't it? They're going to have heard the name Sony. It's going to be easier to buy that. But we're talking about people just going out and buying the gear with no idea. I now know of 2 people that have bought M300s here and then have decided to discover that there are rules and regulations, and you don't just buy a drone and make money. It's not just a money printing machine.
That's what I've been doing.
It's quite extraordinary. Wow.
Haven't we all?
I don't know what it is about the M300. I quite like it, but every time I go to fly one, when it gets to take off, it's like a dog scratching its back leg until it gets in the air. It's got a bit of a wobble on it.
I don't know, not seen one in the flesh, but it never ceases to amaze me how much money all the gear and no idea people will pay. Just buy stuff and think it's going to all be perfect, and how hard can this be anyway? You know, I mean, it must be easy. Loads of people.
That's why camera makers sell so many expensive cameras to people that don't know how to use them.
Yeah. It blows my mind.
People that go straight into the start straight away as a PIFCO, and they've got the van and it's branded and it's the high end DJI gear and the lenses and all that, and you're thinking, me doing that, I would think I would start with, your Mavic Pro or something. Prove you've actually got your market and build it from there, because otherwise you put a huge outlay that you try and recoup.
Well, it's the same when you work out their prices, how much they're charging. They think, we'll do a couple of $100 for this job, but they're thinking they're pricing it on the basis of I'm going to work 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. When they realise all the other things, the variables, you've got to have a massively high charge out rate to cover those downtimes.
When people start PIFCO businesses or CA operation authorization, or even with the A2 CFC now, you still do create businesses. The problem is people don't think I've got to earn minimum wage for 8 hours or however many hours it is, and they're thinking, I'll charge 50 quid because it's only taking me half a day. You've got your car fuel, car insurance, you've got the drone's insurance, you've got your return on investment to make so you can replace the drone in a few years' time. It's crazy. But I must admit, I started out in 2012-ish. I've gone through a Vulcan Mantis.
That's what I started with. Well, second drone.
Yeah, so I had a Vulcan Mantis. I had the DJI F550 because that was one of my first ones. Yeah, with a GoPro 3 Black on it. And that got me one of my first clients, and I still have that client today.
So have you finished the job yet?
I've moved the drone on to the Phantom 4 Pro for them. So, 2015, I got the Phantom 4 Pro. 2016, 2014, 2015, 2016, I got the 4 Pro, and it's worked since then. I now have the Mini 2, and hopefully I've been doing proof of concept with a client, and it looks like we may be a bit busy.
Yeah.
So
you didn't rush out by the 300. You didn't rush out by the 300 or the Inspire or
the client has the M300 that I've been flying for. We have put it up, and I have to say, it is phenomenal. It is stunning, especially when you switch between thermal and RGB. It's really nice, but it's also a bit painful at times as well. I don't like the controller very much. I'm not a fan of the small controller.
Are you full time? Is all your earning fully from drone?
I am a rare person because
thank goodness for that.
I typically don't run a production company. So most people that become CA operational authorization or A2CFC, they become little media companies. So you become like a little production. So you'll do like a business, you'll do ground and air stuff or whatever. I'm rare because I will only fly the aircraft. I only do air stuff. I only fly drones, be it fixed wing or multi-rotor, or VTOL. I don't really care what it is. I only fly and capture data typically. I rarely do any editing of any kind. I am really rare in the industry in that respect. I can build the odd thing if I need to every now and then, but
yeah, I'm just surprised because this still the long-term successful people, or I see success. They've kept on the drone business over the year, and you see them being very active on social media and so on. So many of them actually. The actual income is still coming from another business, and the drone really is just a top up, and it's kind of turning the tide where it's becoming more of their business. But that to me, I always thought was quite striking. And the people that are very successful often had a business there first, and the drones come along and just give them another avenue to capture video or whatever, and
It's just another hammer. It's just another hammer in the toolbox.
Yeah.
It's just a hammer in the toolbox of whatever.
So my unusual, I've been earning my money from drones full time for the last 10 years.
Yeah, so typically, yes, Bruce, in the UK, you'll be quiet. I mean, I know people in the UK, and, you know, I know one guy, he's got his own, he does pub licensing, helping with that kind of thing, and he flies for drones for TV and stuff. He has 2 businesses, and like you say, one of them is nothing to do with the drones at all. And it gets really interesting because here at the minute, the weather's been crap in May. We've had a really crap May. As we were saying before we came on, you know, the jet stream's in the wrong place at the minute. It's south of the country. It needs to come back north. So we've got decent weather.
We've got all your good weather. It's great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, please. And you know, if you only fly drones like I do, you're really limited on the income you'll earn for a month, because if half of it you can't fly, you can only fly in a short period, and you typically, I mean, today was nice, but I didn't earn a penny today. Do you know what I mean? Tomorrow I'm flying, but today was like a dead day. It's, you know, and you were, so instead I was working on something ready for a job that's coming up. So a bit of prep.
You need to get a peak delivery drone. They'll fly in any weather.
And that's you see, I think I'm going to do a video on why these transport hubs where the VTOL's landing and why a last mile delivery should not be done by drone. Because who wants a 25-kilo drone flying for last mile delivery? Why is it not the little Starship rovers? Why are they not? They're the ones that win for last mile.
Milton Keynes rules again.
Yeah, point to point
for the win.
Point to point for everything, you know, like from warehouse to an Amazon locker. That makes sense if it's into a city and then back again to save the van doing it. But otherwise, you know, there's no point in home delivery unless it's to like an island somewhere. You know, it has got cases, but not most. In the UK, it's going to be quite tricky.
Our biggest allies in this battle against the commercialisation of our 0 to 400 foot airspace might be the Postal Service.
Yeah, it really could. You know, the Postal Service will be mad not to look at last-minute delivery by little rovers. It would be, you know, they would be foolish not to be looking at that.
You'd have your unions.
Exactly, the post office unions will be going nuts about that.
Yes.
Yeah, and in New York, they brought some of those enterprise or whatever they're called things into New York, and the mayor had them kicked off the streets. He said the unions are just going to complain. They need to go right now. No, we don't even. And they were just there for a demo.
So lose their jobs to drone delivery anyway, so they might as well get in on it. At least, you know, be twiddling sticks.
So here's the really bizarre thing. So all unions are going to kick off about automation. Well, when they start getting buses that drive themselves, you know, trains technically shouldn't have a driver on board. You know, when we have train strikes in the UK from drivers saying, oh, we want more pay. If I was at a train company, and I hate to say this, and this sounds really harsh, there would not be a train driver on a train again.
Don't they just have dead drivers with the throttle? Isn't it a dead man's throttle? You have to use a dead person for driving a train.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing. Terrible thing about the whole rail industry. Terrible.
Yeah, I would automate all my trains because it's not hard to do. The rail network doesn't need a human anymore. That sounds terrible. And I get, you know...
Don't get the flyaways, do you, with them? They don't fly
away. The Hyperloop will fix this. The Hyperloop will solve these problems.
And it's...
You just have to think about the internet so they don't get them malware.
But you wait till buses, school buses, become automated in America. You imagine how many people will lose their jobs. You know, if they're worried about a postal delivery system, they wait until cars are driverless, until taxi drivers. You know, it's coming. It's just time.
I think perhaps a good argument also is now, imagine if everything's being delivered by drone. We've got ransomware problems at the moment. Imagine hijackware, where all the drones are directed to a little remote place where people grab the stuff and run away with it. These are the things that they're not looking at with the changes in technology and the drone delivery thing, are they?
That's true.
Oh, Louis in the comments. Hello, Louis. I hope you're well. I hope things are going well for you. What does Louis say? Must have a company that sells very high fences. Yes, perhaps that's the case. So what else have we seen? What else have we seen in the? What about jumpers? about jumpers? I'm not quite with you on that one there, Andrew.
I'm wearing one now.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
have a
quite-
jumper. I have a jumper. Yeah, I got a jumper.
Ian's got lots of them, woolly ones in the backyard, eating the leeks.
Yeah, there you go. That's kangaroos. That's Australia. That's your old homeland.
While we're talking about other things, if you're in New Zealand, maybe even if you're not, you need to go and comment on the proposed rule changes. They were going to. Submissions were going to end this week, but I got a note from CAA saying it's been extended by a couple more weeks, I think, into June. So you've got time to make a submission. I'm going to do my formal submission, and I'm going to do a video which will be aimed at the public to try and educate the public into what these people are trying to do and what it threatens to do to the ability of their kids to enjoy a hobby and the ability of old people to enjoy a hobby in retirement, and all the misinformation, because nobody out there in public land even realizes that a toy plane is now a drone. They all think they're toy planes. If CAA don't know that the same rules apply, why would the public know? So we need to educate the public. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be working very hard over the next few days to get that video up and try and get the public involved in this whole thing, because they need to be aware of what rights and freedoms are being taken from them again. We will have to register our drones, but we don't have to register our firearms. It's unacceptable.
So hang on a minute. I'm sorry, right? So in New Zealand, you can have a firearm, but you don't have to register it.
Now, at the moment, you as a gun owner are licensed, but your individual firearms are not held. No notification of what they are, where they, it's no sort of individual firearm registration. But under the proposed regulations for drones, it's not like overseas, where again that's pretty much what happens in the UK. You register if you're a recreational user, you license yourself or register yourself, and all your drones. You don't do them individually, do you? Same in America, unless you're operating commercially. But in New Zealand, they want all your little toy planes to be registered individually, and any major changes to the configuration or whatever to be with pictures and serial numbers. And if they're just these people are dreaming, but you can go out there and buy yourself a shotgun, or you might have an arsenal of 100 firearms, and the police and the government don't know how many you've got. They just know that you've got a license to own guns.
My God, that's batshit crazy.
Well, it's because drones are so much more dangerous.
I'd love for you to do a video where you go, okay, which one do you think needs more regulation? Like have someone with a shotgun shooting clays, or the drone flying? And just, you could do like a big comparison shot, couldn't you?
I think horse riders are the worst. We need to regulate them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Especially ones that ride past airfields. They're terrible, those ones.
You've got to love it when the airfield's been there for a long time, someone buys a plot of land nearby or a farm nearby and starts complaining about the airfield. Didn't you see the great big runway?
Well, apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently horses have airspace now. Keep out of our airspace. Oh, okay. Well, we didn't know they had airspace, but that's obviously Pegasus or something. It's very important.
So what else have we seen? We're definitely going into rant mode. That was the porcupines going by, is why I had to.
I've seen that YouTube have now changed their terms of service, so they will be monetizing your videos whether you want them to or not. Isn't that wonderful?
And I don't know whether it's rolled out over there, but here there's when you run it through the TV, the interface is completely different. The choices are based on your previous viewings have disappeared. It's whatever they're chucking at you now. It's completely changed. And the adverts are so frequent that, like, the wife and I is like, yeah, maybe we won't be watching YouTube through the TV again. We're not going to pay money.
No, I'm looking for a new platform as well, because I actually get more money from my Patreon than from YouTube advertising, because YouTube now want to tax me. I want my vote in the USA because they're going to take taxes off me 5% only or something. But it's still, why am I paying taxes to the American government? I don't use any American government services. I don't think that's fair. So, new platforms coming up, I think. And you'll see a lot of people deplatforming from YouTube, I think, in the coming year or so, because they're going to realize that this is it's getting from bad to worse and beyond. And there'll be the little niche providers popping up which will service an individual market like aviation or models or drones or whatever. So look for DroneTube coming soon to a place near you.
It's interesting with the adverts, because there's a number of channels who've been quite vocal of, we don't put ads on. Well, they're not going to have a choice now. It's a weird situation, because YouTube are punishing the people that bring in the viewers, and this is, I'll be clear. If it changes to a point, I will just end. I will just stop it and get on with my life.
It's going to hit all our revenues, because at the moment, the only ad space they've got is the stuff on partner channel programs, partner program channels. But once they open up all the channels again to advertising, that spreads that ad revenue so thin that people like Ian and I that earn only money from advertising, the bum's going to fall out of it. It's not going to be worth having your videos on YouTube because you won't make any money out of it. So I'm going to take a slightly different twist. And in fact, being on the partner program will enable you to have fewer ads than if you're not on the partner program, because I can just say pre-rolls only, but all the other non-things, they'll have mid-rolls and everything. So people will hopefully will come to my videos because there's even less advertising than on the other channels. But I'm just saying that once it reaches the point where my YouTube revenues are half of my Patreon revenues, I'm out of there. I'll just go with Patreon. I'll find another platform. People can watch my videos for free, and that's the way I'll do it. And it won't be any loss to me. I don't give a damn.
I'm on Odyssey now, so Bruce, you might want to look at Odyssey.
Yeah, I've looked at Odyssey.
Flipping out.
There's a few issues with Odyssey.
Odyssey is fine.
Yeah, but it's a pyramid scheme with cryptocurrency, and
it's not for income. If you look at it as a backup, it is a free backup, which if YouTube took you down tomorrow, everything is still somewhere. And that is the big benefit to it.
My thing, though, is that the market that we're dealing in is so small that we can afford to run our own servers. We will have enough capacity to service. Raspberry Pi on the bedside table would do enough for my channel. And therefore you create your own brand. And then if it works, you bring others in under that umbrella. So you have instead of just Bruce Tube, you have Bruce and Ian Tube, or Bruce, Ian and Gary Tube.
It's time for Flight Plane, because Float Plane is Flight Plane, Bruce, because
Flight Plane, yes.
Flight Plane, because Float Plane is obviously Linus's one, for those who don't know, and it has become fairly successful for them, to be fair.
The problem is I go to Float Plane as a potential viewer and I can't see anything unless I sign up. I mean, I'm not having that.
But perhaps there is a call for the RC industry to have, and I think that's what will happen. You'll end up having all of this segmentation of.
Did you see that new site that's come up from the guy that started RC Universe? That's Pilot something or other. It was advertised on the AMA channel, and that's I think he's trying to do that, create an all-in-one where you got forums and video and that sort of crap all put in together into one place. That could be successful, but I'm RC Universe kicked me off because I criticised sponsors like RC Groups did, so I'm really reluctant to get involved in anything like that.
I think it's going to be interesting to see, because you've got a lot of people who do that. But me and Bruce are in a different position. Bruce's living comes from this. Mine does not. It allows me to continue to do it, but it's not my living. Therefore, if it stops, then it just stops, and I decide if I continue. Whereas Bruce is in a different position. It's as Bruce said, he's made his money from drones for the last 10 years or whatever it is, through YouTube and the others. But it is frustrating that the platform that you support by putting content up is sticking knives in you continuously, and that is the situation we're in right now with it. And when you've got the likes of Hardware Unboxed getting shadow banned, this is a channel with I think a couple of 100,000 subs, and YouTube just decided you're gone. We're not talking to you. You're just gone. There was no communication. They didn't even have someone they could talk to, because computer kept saying no. Because the problem with YouTube is it's massively driven by a computer. And I think I said this before, but you've got big channels like Gamers Nexus who are over 1 million subs who don't have a direct person to deal with at YouTube. It is only the people at Linus's level who get a rep. And Bruce, you're talking people with 5 to 8 million subscribers, and only at their point do they have a phone number for someone to say, what is going on here? And it's crazy, isn't it? It's a mad situation.
And they're devaluing the platform. They're going all TikTok on us with these shorts, and they want to be able to steal your videos for the shorts and things. It's just, it's turned into a giant mess. It's no longer focused. It's no longer YouTube. It's corporate greed tube. And I think a lot of people are getting turned off by that. I certainly am.
Mid-rolls have got out of control this week. I've noticed, I've been watching a lot of mid-rolls.
iForce 2D will surely be releasing his video on how to make a script to download.
You've got to be careful though, because YouTube says that if you do that, they'll kick you off. You're not allowed to download from YouTube unless they let you through, unless it's through a mechanism provided in the platform. So if you get like 4K downloader and you download these videos and they notice it, they can kick you off, close your channel, you're gone. And they've got all the doors sealed, I think.
the thing that gets me is that they can make money in ways where they wouldn't be knocking people off either. Because the thing that annoys me with YouTube is the functionality. I would actually pay a subscription to have functionality where I could, like with Vimeo, where I could replace my video. Sometimes you put a video up, you've watched it numerous times, you're sure it's right, and then you watched it for like you check it for like the 11th time. You notice there's something wrong with it. It's already up by then. You can't change it.
They even removed the annotations. You used to be able to put annotations to correct mistakes after you did the video. No, we can't have that. No,
you can't correct something you've got wrong. You can't. No, you've done it wrong. Yeah, that is a complete freaking nightmare for those of us who do, especially the tech stuff, because it's really easy to say something the wrong way around. Especially for me, if you've got dyslexia, you'll mean you can't do this, and you'll just say you can. And I do it all the time. And as you say, you want to be able to go in afterwards, and it's a weird situation. Bruce mentioned the TikTok stuff this week again. It's been all over it. I've noticed the videos are everywhere. It's going to be interesting to see where it lands in the next few years. So
the bottom line of that is then, so it's not just here where the usability and interface and everything started falling apart. It's a worldwide thing. This last week. Yeah.
And the fact that they're starting to sneak things in now, like that sample this video for shorts. I mean, that they didn't even announce it, and they've just kept it under the covers. And that I don't mind them being upfront and honest, but when they're trying to sneak stuff in under the radar, that their intentions are not good.
Question is, how much money do they want to make? They're taking 50% of all super chats. They're taking, 50% of the ad revenue, Bruce? I think it's something 60, like that.
Or it's supposed 55, 65, something like that. Yeah, they take a huge chunk.
They're taking 50% of super chats, 50% of, there's a point here of how much money do they want to steal from us? There's a lot of noise about Apple taking 30% right now. It makes Apple look downright a bargain, to be fair, compared to what YouTube get away with.
Well, the good thing about it is, though, that this kind of greed eventually cripples and destroys organizations. They keep ramping it up, and all of a sudden they turn around and their market's gone because they've just squeezed the last drop of blood out of the stone. People have abandoned them. They'll never get them back.
It's got me thinking.
So I wonder what time this channel will be banned. It'll be soon. The algorithm will catch up with this conversation very soon, won't it?
I won't talk about this.
Cheers, everyone.
We can't talk about it on our own channels, Gary.
I tell you the best guy on YouTube. Have you seen Bot Grinder? You watch Bot Grinder's streams and Bot Grinder videos. He doesn't monetize his videos because he couldn't, and they're so offensive that if YouTube puts ads on them, the advertisers will complain because it's not advertiser-friendly content. So he's going to be getting all this free hosting and promotion for free, and the advertising won't be there. He'll be the only channel you'll be able to watch on YouTube. Bunch is pretty good anyway. So,
what I'd like to know. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a real opportunity here for Amazon. They've got the Amazon Prime. They could bolt something on the side of that to be a competitor to YouTube. As well, with having the video platform, you could actually then just hop on and watch.
You know who else? And the other one, Apple. Don't discount them. Look at the amount of handsets there are out there, and the amount. If you look at any of your content, it's all mobile now. Everyone's watching mobile for the most part. So it wouldn't take a lot for someone like Apple to step in and go, right, we're going to offer a video platform alongside the podcasts or something like that.
That would only work if Apple would stop being obsessed with their own gear, which they will never do, because if you look at Apple TV, that isn't doing so well because of the fact
but iPhone's like hell.
It ties you into all their stuff, which is a shame.
It works. Yeah, but Apple TV, you can have Netflix on it.
Which kind of defeats the point, though, doesn't it?
Got one in every classroom at school.
You can have your Netflix without. So
I'll be honest, I miss being totally Apple. There are major downsides for using a PC compared to a Mac, especially if you're an iPhone user. I can transfer videos with one touch of a button from my phone to my desktop from anywhere in my house. I can record.
So you're just saying basically you're lazy?
No, because there's just no good way.
AirDrop.
I'm actually genuinely worried about that, and I will not let my phone and my computer connect, because that, if you think about it, a lot of your online banking and that and stuff you do on your phone these days, and a lot of people that are actually tying their computers and the phone together and you're actually then circumventing all your two-factor authentication. because if somebody hacks your computer, they also will get through your text from your phone, get that as well, put your two-factor in.
But
I think we've seen some really good attacks in future for people actually with the integration that's going on there. I think with that, people need to be a bit more savvy about it.
Yeah, but Apple's pretty good on that side of stuff. That's where they are at their best, to be fair.
Didn't we just see they had apps that have had malware in them for years in the Apple walled garden and no one noticed?
Yeah, there's been some background stuff, but still, it's hacks. Out and out data stealing is still, I do miss having the full functionality between the devices. From a creative point of view, it's the simplest thing in the world between Macs and iPhones.
But Android's very consistent. It doesn't work with anything.
It doesn't work with anything. Yeah, that's the benefit to it. I hate Android. I
love it.
You see, I've used Android, right, but. Again, it's horrible. It does silly things. It's not quite right. There's something not. Either I'm just used to a fluid system that just
this about
works. Either I'm used to a system that just fluidly works. But I love it. I take a photo with my phone and I just come in and go, right, I'm going to send this to the Mini. So just and you just airdrop it.
Do that with Android stuff. You can do that with Android stuff.
It's for my So if I want to film something from a creative point of view, it is much better. To be fair, if you've used it, going back is so painful, and I did it. I'm the person that I'm back.
I believe there's a video of that. Yeah. I can't believe we're having this conversation. We've gone well off track.
How did we end up here? Oh, it's YouTube. It's Bruce's fault. It's YouTube.
I'm with iForce 2D. I won't have Apple stuff in the house. But there we are. That's me. But at school, they flipping bought 100 iPads and say we got Apple TV in every classroom.
They just work, don't they, Gary? They just work.
No, they don't work because they don't work with all the educational. They work if you want to buy into all the educational apps that the people that sold them all the iPads do. But if you want to do anything else that's creative or interesting,
Microsoft Teams is bad. I had to use
we don't use that.
My kids,
I can develop Android software for free, but I have to buy stuff if I want to develop software for iOS.
Xcode's free.
Yeah, the thing I know
the developer's license. Developer.
Oh yeah, it's 99 quid for the developer's license.
Yeah, well, that's a discouraging thing, isn't it?
The one thing that I was quite shocked about, because I was on iPhone a number of years ago, was the apps. Now, so many apps as well for little trivial things, monthly subscriptions. I'm like, get lost. And I can get an app that does exactly the same thing on Android, often better, and it's one-off purchase. I mean,
that's the developer. That's got nothing to do with anything other than the developer wanting money. That's all that is.
Yeah, but the fact is on Apple, they're doing it because it's full of idiots that spend money on the street.
It's the developer that chooses who's paying for the app. It's not Apple, it's the developer.
But we all know Apple users are rich enough to afford monthly subscriptions.
That's it.
No, we're not.
To be fair, AirDrop is something that needs someone needs to come up with something like anyone who's used it. AirDrop is just the best thing in the world.
No, it's not. When you've got 100 kids and the bloody AirDrops activated and they're sending pictures around the school in seconds, and I can't find a big enough stick to beat them with. AirDrop's awful. It's a terrible thing. Well, that's wanted the AirDrop to from a machine in a bag, didn't they, on an airliner, and got an airliner to go back to the gate because somebody airdropped all over the bomb on board.
Reminds me of drone delivery, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
But anyway, it was nice having this channel, Gary, because it's been banned as of now.
It's been now banned by
the
Apple,
algorithm will be
YouTube.
Very
the whole lot. Yeah, the whole lot's coming up.
I don't know if you've noticed, YouTube has been just talking about that, and it is tech related, stroke drone related. There's been not drone. There's been a pushback.
See what you've invoked now. See what you've made happen now.
There's been a mad pushback about crypto as well. YouTube has been delisting lots of crypto videos in the last week.
You mentioned DOGE coin, you get
big pushback.
So you're just making sure now. Are you just making sure that happens? Yeah.
I spelled it because AI can't spell.
That wind turbine blade's a bit dirty, Louis.
Yeah, you need to clean your turbine, Louis.
Yeah, clean your turbine blade.
He's not been flossing.
That shaft is
Come on.
disgusting.
Oh, that's
Bloody
got
hell,
something.
that is dirty, isn't it?
Oh, look at
Oh,
the state of the shaft.
It's Blade Hub.
Blade Hub.
Come on,
There
guys.
you go.
You come to back me up about iPhones now, aren't you, Louis? Come on.
Well, I just recently swapped from a very good Android phone to an iPhone.
Yes.
Everybody's entitled to one
And,
mistake.
No. I still fight with iPhone because it has its own way of doing things, while I was used to do things in different ways. But one thing I can tell you, it's consistent and it just works. Sometimes you get bugs on Androids, and I had a very good, and I still have an Android tablet, which I like very much. I don't have an iPad because my Android tablet works very well, and my iPhone works very well. And if you guys miss AirDrop, come on, guys, get used to that on Android. Just use Google Drive. You just sync to Google Drive, and it's there instantly. Come on, guys. Why are you making things so hard?
Thanks, Matt. I see that, Matt. Thanks.
Google Drive. Oh,
Yeah.
Come on. I have a 1 terabyte Google Drive.
Yes, we
I love it.
schools get unlimited storage. We get unlimited storage with our schools account. It's
And yet they still fill it up.
Yes, but with Google Drive, you've got to upload it to the cloud and then download it from the cloud again. AirDrop is device to device.
yeah, just
True.
Oh God,
I'll give you
Ian, you really should feel the pain of doing device to device 4 gigabyte video phone.
I
Oh,
do
it's-
it all the time.
If this will send 4 gigs straight to the Mac Mini, it won't even bat an eyelid.
How else can we get this channel delisted, Bruce? There's got to be something else.
what's happening?
I've got a whole list of ideas, don't worry.
It's some ideas. Bruce is going to be in a series of videos how to get me deplatformed. Thanks, Bruce.
We should start talking about
Oh.
Twitch and those other ones. That's it then. That'll be it.
God, Twitch didn't work. It didn't work at all here. I can't watch anything on Twitch. There's a few things I want to watch like that. Have you watched that RoboCar AI racing, which is absolutely awful? It's
Since I got
shabby as
Parkinson's,
shabby
my
could be.
Twitch is working really well.
Oh, there you go.
Come on,
But it's-
come on, Gary.
It just won't stream here. Won't stream.
Have you heard about
Why
Starlink
are
yet?
you-
Any news on your Starlink?
Oh, I have news on Starlink.
Our regulator is absolutely wanting a huge cut, so we'll have to see how that pans out. But that's normal operating practice here. Our ex-president is in court, along with Thales, for some corruption the last 2 days here. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, hopefully next year. But we'll see. And now, what's Mark's news on Starlink?
So apparently the European Union is very concerned because they've actually worked out what Elon Musk will make a year from Starlink and gone, oh crap. And now they're looking and thinking, how can we need something that can match it, because they reckon that Starlink's turnover and user base, it'll make billions. It's just going to be mental.
So just what we need, another 30,000 satellites darkening the heavens.
Yeah, so there's going to be
No, but
another network. Well, they're looking at
No,
joining.
but you're joking, but it's true, because astronomers are already complaining about the Starlink that creates lots of noise pollution in the sky.
Yeah, so that's going on, but they've already hit 500 meg up and down now as well. So people have been doing some recent speed tests. It's been smashing because everyone's going to go, oh, it's going to get slower and slower. And Amazon have done, no, is it Google? Or is it Amazon? I think it's Google, actually. They've done a deal where it's going to be on the backbone of the Google data centers.
You know what they'll do? They'll class him as a monopoly and force him to open the network up.
Well,
That's what they'll do. They'll just play that game with him. They won't want to put more satellites up. So what they'll turn around and say is he's got a monopoly on the industry. The second he starts grabbing big numbers of users, they'll turn around and say he's got a monopoly on the industry and force him to open the network up like they've done in the UK with BT and others. That's what they'll do.
Well,
this little place here seems quite well served. I don't know where it is, but it's got ground stations and everything.
But OneWeb is the UK version, isn't it? And they've got a bit of
OneWeb.
coverage.
That's this one.
So OneWeb is.
Hang on, let's compare and contrast a minute. Here's OneWeb.
Yeah, and you'll notice OneWeb is hitting more of Europe. You'll notice that.
And there's Starlink.
Yeah, there's Starlink. But if you go back to OneWeb again, you'll notice OneWeb's more. If you scroll up, it should be hitting more of Europe a bit. No, it's not right. I'm wrong.
No,
I'm wrong.
No. Look, there's that country
Greenland
there.
is the place to be if you want to use OneWeb.
Yeah,
Greenland's well served.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yes.
Oh, that's
And
their
the
new.
poles.
No, so that's their new ring going out, isn't it? So that lot just up there at the top, because OneWeb had a launch a bit ago. That those satellites are spreading out now, just below your cursor.
Yeah, all this lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not even a conversation, is it? When you
It's
do
not
that?
really. When you look at that.
It's not.
And interestingly, SpaceX had their first new booster in about 6 months delivered to the site for launching more Starlinks. Their first new booster in about 6 months. That is incredible.
It's quite interesting. Do you remember when we did this before? That was quite over because my place is here. There's quite often gaps.
Yeah,
But it's not like there's a bit going through, but
yeah, you're
not
getting
so
coverage.
many. It's coming, isn't it? It's coming.
Yeah, and you can see the new strings are out, can't you? Down there on the bottom left, one on the top right,
Yeah,
one above.
amazing. And I think, I firstly asked why the regulators want, because any business here is, so if you want to earn money here, they want a finger in it. They've just said all oil exploration now, it's a mandatory 20% of it goes towards the government, and so the fracking
Oil
and all that sort of thing.
Problem is, oil exploration now is done, isn't it? Oil exploration's had its day.
Not down here.
Not
down here. Not down
If
here.
you want a squeaky EV, you need oil.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Get away, Mark. I love the smell of petrol in the morning.
I don't.
On. Oh, God, it's so nice.
But did you see in Australia they've got the new battery technology, the aluminium ion technology that's going to boost capacity by a factor of 3. You can recharge in 10 seconds, and it has no theoretical limit to the amount of current it can deliver. What a load of hogwash!
Yeah.
What was that in the screen thing in the sky that went behind your head then, Louis?
Paraglider.
Turn your car around. What was it? Was it a kite or something?
Yeah, kite surf.
Kite surfer. That's it. Yeah, you drove carefully on that beach. You're not paying attention. I can see you're not looking where you're going.
Why isn't it drone footage? That'd be better if it was drone footage.
Yes. It's like he's riding a banana with that yellow in the back of him or something, isn't it? It's Louis on his flying banana. Right, we are definitely going very, very, very far off topic. Has anybody got anything drone related that we can add to this something fest? That was, well, I might as well swear. Another reason.
I think you guys covered it all. That people are mad with DJI about the Air 2S, and that's it.
What's wrong with the Air 2S?
It's for a part for some it should be the Mavic 3. For others it should be cheaper because it's still a Air. So you cannot get everyone happy.
No.
Oh, I actually
With enough drugs, you can.
I was actually flying the Mini 2 in London, and my Mini 2 locked out on me.
Mini 2 locked out?
It wouldn't descend at all. I was stuck with it for about a minute. I could
It
move
would
it,
when a battery goes flat.
but I couldn't descend.
Definitely would.
Yeah, well, not what I wanted in the middle of London. Well, not in North London. That's not what you want.
You're not supposed to fly in London because otherwise you'll get the name of Mark Gatwick 2. So you don't want to be called that name. And I think it was some kind of issue between the remote and the operator. So,
Do you think it was a loose nut behind the sticks, Louis?
Oh,
he forgot. He perhaps didn't read the manual, and he didn't find the sticks that are stuck behind. So he was looking at those little wheels without sticks attached.
It was really, it's a really weird sensation when it doesn't do what you want it to, though, because it always have fingers on sticks, and you pull down, it doesn't do it, and you go, okay.
That's called. I was going to say something, but I'll tell it when we go offline.
That's why I never let a GPS get in the way. I never fly GPS drones. They're boring and slow, and they don't always do what you tell them to.
No. So you say, right, we're definitely talking nonsense. Going once, going twice, I'm going to give you no more opportunities. Dear listener, viewer, wherever you might be in the world, thank you very much for spending some time with us again. That was very interesting stuff from Ian and co about Gatwick, and when will the truth ever come out? Who knows? Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay away from other people, look after yourselves. We'll see you again 2100 GMT next week. Bye for now. Cheerio. Now I press the button up here, then I press the button up here.